If you want to learn how to do the perfect satin stitch for applique on a Husqvarna Viking sewing machine, these tips are for you. Now we're working through the free video tutorials on the Brilliance 75Q, and a satin stitch is something that when you master it and it looks perfect, you can use it in so many places. And we talk a lot about our decorative stitches when we are working on our Stitching Cosmos online course. That's that quilt behind the machine, where every block is a different technique. There's over 25 different sewing techniques, a lot of different presser feet we talk about, but all things that we use our sewing machine functions for. So in this video, we're going to talk about normally a zigzag is what we change into a satin stitch. We take a zigzag and shorten it up in, or close it up in stitch lengths that's very solid, and then we can go around a raw edge. So here's the thing with a Viking. If you just take a zigzag and start to shorten it up in stitch length, you find you don't have all the increments. It actually stops on this machine at 2 millimeters. Did you see how that never got close enough to look like anything? And that's because on this machine, there is a specific built-in satin stitch. And Viking has had this for tons of years on most of their models. So look in your machine of which stitch it is. But here we're going to touch and hold the top tab here, and it will bring up all of our menus, and it's the B menu. You can even see it. It's actually pictured right there. And when I click on it, it says Applique Stitches. So stitch number 10 is the one we're going for. We are going to be able to make it any width you want, but there are a few other stitches that I love to use, and so 11 and 12, and there's even more on the next page, 13 through 20. All of those have some type of satin stitching to them. So the nice thing is when we select stitch number 10, first off, I notice that it tells me I need a different foot. So if you've been using the A foot for all your normal sewing, the B foot has a cutout. You kind of see that little ridge, a removal of the foot behind where the needle stitch is. So the thickness of the satin stitch has a place to flow out the back. It never gets hung up. And on an A foot, you don't have that. You just have a little bit that is cut out. It's more for the straight stitches. But when it says to switch to a B foot, this is why. So always make sure you're referencing which foot you should be using when you start exploring other stitches, especially the decorative stitches. Now, when I opened up this machine though, I realized they included the open toe clear foot. I know it's clear, there you go. It is actually the same foot as the B foot, meaning there is a cutout on the back side. It's just on this one, I can see where I'm going because it's completely removed. That bar in front of the needle is not there. So I am actually going to use the open toe foot so you can see what I'm doing as I change the settings as I go. As we go to the stitch menu, where we can go into the information, I should say, we see that the stitch length is already brought down to 0.8. 0.8 means it's already pretty close together, but this machine doesn't know what thickness of thread I have put on the machine. So if you are putting in a little thinner thread, as you sew, you're probably going to need to shorten it up a touch or two. Don't get it too thick, it will probably stop moving, but you can actually go into smaller increments and get it finessed into exactly the density. So I'm going to show you that. You also can make it wider, so up to 7.0 wide, so any of the widths that you want to use. And that is so nice that you can dial it in. Something petite, something in the middle. 4.0 is kind of where it started. That's kind of hefty in my world of applique. I'm usually somewhere a little less than that. But we're going to start there and we're going to show you how you can adjust it while you sew and what you're looking for. Here's one reason I love this foot is because I can see a mark in the center back. So if I'm covering up a raw edge, I can keep that lined up with the mark. The red marks on the left and right are exactly where my needle is positioned. So I know exactly where I'm also starting. So let's just take the default settings. Oh, by the way, I switched over to some variegated thread. So you're going to see some different colors as it stitches. And you're going to find that you want to do a little sample first. Plus, oh, by the way, I've got a piece of denim and I've got some stabilizer underneath. So you need to give some support to your stitches. So let's just take just a little bit, and I'm going to cut it so we can take it out and actually look beside to see. Now we can kind of see, I mean, it really does look good, but you can find, I bet we could close that up just a little bit. So there's not those little, you can kind of see there's some little gaps in between the stitches. So I'm going to just come in here and let's just shorten it one touch. So now I'm at 0.6. And again, I want to make sure that it still stitches without me having to push it through, but I can see already it's a lot more satin stitchy, a lot more dense. You could try one more, but I feel like we're gonna really kind of be a little too close. It's gonna really look good though. All right, we'll compare those. And now just for fun, while I'm still stitching, we can make it wider. Oh, I feel like I'm almost too thick here. Oh, but it looks good. And then I can make it narrower. Remember, you can change these while you sew, so you can actually see and narrow down into what settings are going to look best. Okay, let's compare to where we started. And, ooh, yes. So can you see the difference? You really can see that one is a little bit more complete. This almost gets two, just because this thread is a little bit on the thicker side, it's almost over piling itself. So I'm actually going to say the last setting was a little too close, but I really liked it better than what I had before. This is ideal. Now, if you're wondering what thread I'm using, I always find that if you look at the end of a spool of thread, you can really see the colors. Sometimes hard to tell from the edge. This is the Signature brand number 40 weight, and it is actually SM016 is the color. One of my favorites. It's kind of those just fun, colorful, rainbow. Okay, maybe it's more just like a unicorn color, but I absolutely love it. So if you're trying out any of the other stitches that are satin stitches within the machine, know that you can actually adjust the stitch length to accommodate whatever thickness of thread that you're working on. So remember, if you are curious about our Stitching Cosmos online course, that course is amazing to really help you go beyond your manual, learn more about your machine, kind of challenge you to do things you never thought you'd do. And there are free lessons that you can watch. There's a link in the description below that will hook you up and see if that course is right for you.